Hi everybody, I'm Julia and this is Julia at Home. If you're new here, I'm a homeschooling mom to a second grader, a kindergartner, and a 1-year-old. Today's video is about homeschool routines or schedules, and this is actually a collab video with Angie from Science Mama. And I will have her and her video on homeschool routines linked below. She is a fantastic channel to follow if you're not already. She loves to talk about homeschooling and books, and what homeschooler doesn't love books. I've been watching her videos for a while and I really enjoy them, so I'm excited to do this collab. So homeschooling routines, rhythms, schedules, what's the difference? So we use more of a routine or rhythm. So in my mind, a schedule is more so, we do this at 9, we do this at 10, we do this at 12, and so on. And I like to follow more of a rhythm where we have like an order to our days, but it doesn't have to be an exact time. Now that being said, I do tie things to certain times during the day. There's about an hour block where I'm aiming to have lunch at some time in that hour block and such. And I have an idea of when we want to be doing morning chores in school. And I'll get into that a little bit as well. But I really like to call ours more of a routine or a rhythm than a schedule. So first I'm going to talk about our daily routine, and then I'll talk a little bit more about our week. I do have a structure to our day that I like to follow, or a rhythm, but aspects of it change based on the day. We start with free time in the morning. My kids are usually up before I am, or at least before I'm ready to really be on top of the parenting. So usually my husband makes breakfast and I have some mommy time, and that looks like a variety of things. Recently it's looked like going out in the garden and weeding and watering, but ideally it would also include things like doing my own reading and yoga and exercising, meditating, all that stuff. But to be honest, right now it's usually just me spending the whole time in the garden, and that's okay. And the kids get a lot of free time at this point too. And sometimes they're playing outside if I'm outside, or just in their rooms or in the playroom. My husband watches the baby for me during this time, so that I can just have that little bit of time when she's not, on my back and I'm not chasing her around the house. So breakfast is included in this free time. It's around the same time every morning, around 7:30-ish, I think is the goal. But it's not exact. And he likes to start work around 9. So that's basically when my day with the kids gets started. And I like to start with morning chores. So right now, the kids have some really basic morning chores. They each of the big kids have to make their own beds, and then they alternate sweeping under the kitchen table and wiping it down. So one will do sweeping, one will wipe down, the next day we'll switch. And that's all I'm having them do for right now, aside from pickup, which we have to do all the time. It just it gets crazy, so it happens a lot. But if it's a mess in these school areas, we will also pick it up at that time before we start school. I'm hoping to be able to add in a little bit of more morning chores for them, but I also know that I have to kind of train them and be on top of them. So starting with these simple chores works for me. I also have my own morning chores of making my own bed and doing my own little pickup, and then depending on timing, if I can get to some cleaning in the kitchen and bathrooms and whatnot, I will get to that, although it doesn't always happen. After the kids finish their morning chores while I'm working on mine, that's when I also ask my oldest, my second grader, to practice her piano. That way it's just done at the beginning of the day, and I can usually listen while I'm cleaning, and so I'm not right on top of her, but I am checking in on what's going on. Some days I go in and check in a little bit more and make sure she's doing things exactly as she's supposed to, but I have a pretty good ear for music, so most of the time I can hear what she's doing, and I'll pop in and make sure her hands are up, or just say, play that one again, or let's work on that little issue. And some days I just let her be, and she's gone through each of her songs once, and I'll just let it be. But that's generally when I want her to practice her piano, so it's done. I also had planned to ask her to do some reading, either at that time or during an afternoon block, maybe before we start school while I'm working with the baby. However, she just reads on her own at random times all throughout the day, so I haven't felt the need to ask her to do that. I would prefer, this is great. I prefer this way. She's just kind of reading on her own when she wants to, what she wants to. And the things she's been reading are a good level for her. So I don't feel the need right now to assign her anything extra, but that could be something that does go into our routine at a later date. After morning chores is our morning block of time, which is usually set aside for school. And I say usually because things change based on the day of the week and just what we're doing in that given week. So I will get into that more later, but that is our first kind of chunk of time there in the morning. And so this could look like on a normal day, like circle time, Italian, and then some other family reading like history, art, geography, things like that. Or it might be that we do individual school. I work with my daughter and then I work with my son, or vice versa. So that's basically what we would do. It's normally a morning school block. Then we break for lunch. This is normally, I'm kind of aiming to start lunch sometime between 12 and 1. Occasionally we'll start a little bit earlier if we're all really hungry, but usually that's about where we do it, and usually it's around 12:30. But again, it kind of depends what we're doing in school and where we are. It's kind of when there's a good ending point within that time, we'll stop and I'll shift to making lunch. The kids kind of run around while I do it. Usually the baby is down causing chaos, and we have lunch for however long that takes. It's usually not super long, but it's also not super fast either. We do like to sit down and eat together for the most part. Occasionally my husband will even come up and join us, but you never really know with him. So it depends on if he has meetings and what he's doing. So occasionally we get to have a full family lunch, and that's always really nice. Ideally, we're also practicing our Italian during that time because we have Talkbox Mom, and we've done a lot of Italian phrases for eating in different foods and things like the silverware and the plates and stuff. So ideally, we're also practicing our Italian. After we eat, I usually take a little bit of time to try to do a quick cleanup. Especially, we just have the one table in our house. We don't have a separate dining room. So usually if we're going to do school or any projects on the table in the afternoon, it's really good to have it all cleared and cleaned. It's probably a good idea anyway. So a little bit of cleanup, babies running around. The kids usually have a little bit of free time. I like to kick them outside when I can. It's just been so super hot lately that I haven't been, but that again would be ideal. Usually the baby's running around, and then I try to have some time with the baby. So as she gets older, this will be maybe doing presentations with her for practical life and such. But right now it just basically means me rolling around the floor with her, maybe pulling out some toys, maybe a book, and looking at it. And it usually just lasts a really short amount of time. To be honest, she's usually pretty tired at this point. So I may have to shift when I do that. But for right now in our routine, that's kind of my mommy baby time that I try to focus on her a little bit. And then after we do that, I get set for our afternoon block of time. And when we start this, so the timing on this all really varies. It could be as early as 1:30. It's probably not earlier than that, but as late as like 3 at this point. So again, it really varies. But then I try to take a chunk of time in the afternoon, which is our afternoon block, which may be more school. It might be specifically like an art project or science, or it might just be some home tasks like I need to do. Perhaps I just brought in a bunch of tomatoes and I need to make some sauce and can them. That would take up a good chunk of time there as well. Often we also need a snack sometime within there. So again, because it's kind of a fluid time situation, there's sometimes a snack thrown in the middle of it. Sometimes I will give them a snack before we start our activity, or sometimes we'll do it afterwards. But usually there's some sort of snacking going on in the afternoon. We don't go the whole afternoon before dinner. But after this chunk of time, it's just more free time. We're pretty much done with the school day by then. They can run around outside. They can play in their rooms. They can play in the playroom. Often they're just wherever I am doing random things. And at some point I need to make dinner. We aim right now during the summer to have dinner at 6. Sometimes when it's dark in the winter, we have it earlier because it's just dark and it feels later. But right now we're having dinner around 6. But again, like it could be anywhere from like 5:30 to 7 at this point. I try not to do it late, like as late as 7. That will happen if I get distracted by something or a meal takes particularly long time. But usually around 6, we have dinner together as a family. And then depending on the time and how everybody's behavior is, we might have a little bit more free or playtime after that. And ideally a quick pickup. It's not always quick, but ideally a quick pickup. And then we go ahead and as a family, we do family read alouds. My husband usually does the reading aloud so that I can do something else. like change into jammies and maybe do some sewing, although it's a little bit harder with a baby around these days. And we'll do read aloud, and then it's bedtime. And lucky for me right now, my husband does the bedtime with the big kids because I'm usually really tired at this point. And I put the baby to bed, and then ideally have a little bit of mommy time. So if I don't fall asleep with the baby, I can edit videos and read and watch other people's videos on YouTube. So that's kind of how the structure of our daily routine works. Now I'll talk a little bit more about our weekly routine. So we almost always follow the daily routine, but you've noticed I set aside chunks of time, morning chunk and an afternoon chunk. And those change based on the day of the week. And I have a little cheat sheet here because we're just still easing into our schedule, so we're not officially following this yet. I wrote down kind of if there were a week where like nothing else were happening, this is ideally what we'd be doing during each of these chunks on each of these days of the week. Now, things often come up. Just because we're home doesn't mean things don't come up. Often, like I'll have suddenly a harvest of something, or if we have a doctor's appointment, things like that come up. This is what I have right now. And also, this will probably change and adapt as we change seasons. So that's the beauty of this flexibility. The flexibility of these routines, and also just as homeschooling, you have that ability to change things up as they are or are not working for your family. Okay, so on Monday, in the morning chunk of time, the idea is to do family school. Now, what I mean by family school is I'm gonna put my cheat sheet there for a minute. For family school, it is generally what you think of as like a morning basket or morning time. We start with our circle time, and then we often do Italian, and then it's a little bit different every day based on what we're doing that week. But it's things like history reading, literature reading, what else do we have? Geography, artist, composer. Right now we're doing government and elections leading up to our presidential election here in the US. So that's a lot of stuff that I'm usually reading aloud to the kids in various subjects. It doesn't include things like projects. Those are set aside as separate. But it's basically that morning time, that morning basket, read aloud time. I'm calling it family school right now. And so that would be that Monday morning chunk. Monday afternoons are set aside as home projects is what I'm calling it. So it could be a variety of things. Right now, it's most likely to be me harvesting things. So it might be that we get a whole lot of tomatoes in and I have to process them, or it might be going through saving seeds, or doing another gardening task. That's what it is a lot of the time right now. But it could also be maybe there's an area of the house I need to catch up on cleaning or decluttering, or another project that I'm personally working on. So that's more of like a mommy time. And the kids, sometimes I ask them to help me out with things, and sometimes it's just free time. Actually, probably most of the time it's just free time. So that's what Monday afternoons are set aside as right now. And that could change as well. I also have a note for Mondays here that they are field trip / appointment day. So if we're going to go to, say, a doctor's appointment, or on a nature hike or other field trip, as is possible right now, even though they're limited, I would prefer to do those on Mondays. And what I can do on those days is do that on Monday morning, ideally, and then move family school to Monday afternoon. So that's what that would look like. Occasionally, you might also have like a doctor's appointment in the afternoon, and so that would happen instead of home projects. But that's just how I try to build that flexibility in a little bit. Sometimes you can't do that, right? Sometimes they're not open, like the doctor's appointment. The doctor's office isn't open on Monday. So maybe we have to schedule on Wednesday, and then we'll just move whatever that chunk of time, either morning or afternoon, is from Wednesday to that time on Monday, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the ideal of what would happen on Monday. Tuesday, we start in the morning chunk with individual school. So what individual school means to me is it's the skill subjects for my older kids. So for my daughter who's in second grade right now, what that looks like is doing a lesson in logic of English. It's doing whatever math I have set aside, so that varies quite widely. We might have a Montessori, a lesson with Montessori materials. We might have like a Charlotte Mason style math lesson, or we might even have worksheets for Math Mammoth. So it really, really varies right now. but that's what we do for her. She's also going to be doing some Brave Writer work. We didn't start it right off the bat this year. We're going to be doing a couple quivers of arrows that we have left. I think they renamed it to Dart now, and they have some different naming of the products happening. But I have several books. I think I've picked 5 for the course of the whole year. So some are individual arrows and some are from the old quiver of arrows set that I had. And we're going to be starting with Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. So that's really exciting. So just to give you an idea as I'm talking through this. So for example, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon would be our literature book at that time, and that would be read during family school time, but she would just be doing her copy work, dictation work with it during her individual school time, where I will sit with her and do that. So just to give you an idea, for my son who's in 1st grade, his individual school time right now is also a lesson in Logic of English. They're both working through foundations. He is in A, she is in C. So that's where we are in that. And then the math that I give him, he has pretty much finished, he's finished the Montessori numbers activities. So we're working a little bit with the golden beads and the decimal system, and I'm also getting him his own math notebook, and he's going to be starting some of those early Charlotte Mason math lessons. And if you want more info on that, I do have a video on combining Montessori and Charlotte Mason math and how I do it. And so I'm moving through that process with him now. He's in kindergarten. That was Tuesday morning. Our afternoon chunk on Tuesday is for science. And our science curriculum this year is very hands-on, lots of experiments. We're using the Life curriculum by Pandia Press. It's Real Science Odyssey, and they have different subjects. So the first one is life. And so that I just like to do as a chunk in the afternoon. Sometimes it's just a really short one thing. Sometimes we'll do 2. So for this next week we have coming up, it's going to be 2 experiments or lessons at once. We're going to be looking at the cell. So that's pretty cool. But one is one is looking at an egg and how it's a cell, and another is making cells, plant versus animal cells, with Jell-O and fruit. So that's 2 things, but neither takes super long. But again, so I'm hoping to get them both done in that one afternoon chunk. Wednesday, again, we start the morning with family school. I'd like to do that at least twice a week. The afternoon is history project or art project, and a lot of that overlaps this year. Sometimes I have history projects that are not like from our art curriculum. For example, this year we've already done, we used modeling clay to make some Celtic inspired jewelry. So they've made torques and some brooches that I'm going to get pins for. So it could be that, or it could be an art lesson from our Artistic Pursuits book. It just depends. I look on a week by week basis as to what I've planned out. Thursday is individual school in the morning again. So you'll notice I don't make them do those skills subjects every day. I'm feeling like if I get through 2 lessons of Logic of English a week and practice the math with them twice a week, I'm happy with their progress with that. They're still very young, 2nd and kindergarten, and I just don't feel the need to do more. In the past, we've actually only done 1 Logic of English lesson a week, and they still made progress. Of course, it's slower than somebody who's doing it every day, but that's just the choice I made, and this is where I'm comfortable with this year. Do have them doing it at least 2 times a week is the goal. And Thursday afternoon, I kind of have this extra loop. So it's to plug in kind of what fits here. So it can be nature journaling. Because we're adding science this year, nature journaling is kind of separate. And I'd like to get to it most weeks, but we may not get to it every week. And you can also look at my video on how we nature journal here. Sometimes I often in that video I did 2 separate things, which is that we observed things, drew them, read about them, and took notes. And then we also did colors of the month and sketching things that we saw that represent the month to us. And usually I would do those separately. So it might be that it might be one or the others of those, or if there's something that we just saw recently or are particularly interested in, we might go that direction too. But some form of nature journaling is an extra. And this is kind of a loop, but it might not always go in order. Like I might not get to everything else. I might come back to nature journaling. But let me tell you what else is on here. Extra science or health. So for example, if I scheduled 2 science experiments for that week, but it seems like the first one either took a really long time or it looks like it's going to take a long time and I want to separate them, that could go there. Or we're also doing health. We're required to do health by the state. And so I just do it a couple times a year. And we're going to actually do more experimental science more experimental things for health this year. So I'm hoping to do like I'm hoping to do the experiment with bread where everybody like touches it and then washes their hands, touches another one, put them in the plastic baggies and see all the germs. Basically, and my daughter also specifically asked for a agar bacteria kit, which I did get for her. She'd read about it in one of her Zoe and Sassafras books. So that's going to be another health lesson. So things like that will be kind of sprinkled in throughout the year. I don't think I even have enough for once every month. So it's going to be like every few months, and that's perfectly fine. Let's see. Also in here, jot it down. So we're doing fairy tales. So one of the activities in Jot It Down is to do read different versions of like the same fairy tale, and then have the kids draw their own version, and then you write it down what they say. And so we're doing that, but I'm making it cover basically the whole year. So we'll see how many we get to. I don't know exactly. So far, we started with Rapunzel because I had my kids each choose one that they wanted to start with. So we started with Rapunzel, which was my daughter's choice, and we read 2 different versions. We're gonna watch Tangled because it's one of my favorite Disney movies, and then I'm gonna have them do that. So that will be probably next week. Actually, I'll probably do that on Thursday afternoon. That'll probably be our afternoon chunk, is to do the drawing for Jot It Down. And then so when we read, so again, just to clarify that, when I read the fairy tales, I do that during family school time, but the time it takes for them to like draw it and everything, which is not every week, it's probably every 3 to 4 weeks, then we will do that during our afternoon time. Hopefully that makes sense. And poetry teas, the other thing in that extra kind of loop that I have going on there. I also noted here like art, handwork, history. So if there's extra stuff in any of those other subjects that we're just not getting to, or I feel like we need to work on, then that might be the case. Also, as we get closer to the holidays and I want to do more handmade gifts and such, I might set aside one of those weeks, that chunk of time, to maybe do a handwork project that is Christmas presents. So yes, again, flexibility is key. And that was Thursday. So Friday for me, assuming that the rest of the week went normally, Friday for me is a little bit less structured. I mean, hopefully we'll still follow the touch points of morning chores and lunch and dinner, obviously. But the notes that I made myself for Friday are to play more educational games. I have so many and we love playing them when we get to them, and I just don't always get to them. So that I want to try to prioritize that. It's also a day for us to catch up if something happened and we didn't get to some of the stuff I had scheduled, or maybe we got behind in a subject at some point, to hopefully give some time to catch up. Or it could also be a day for home projects. At some point, I'm going to need to schedule in decluttering each of the kids' rooms. So they might actually each need a separate chunk of time on a Friday. And then I put mommy YouTube on there as well. So it's a time I have set aside as well if I need to take some time for me to film a video for you or do something else. And that's generally how my weeks work. I have some extra notes to myself on my weekly routine that I'll just share with you. I have been enjoying going to the grocery store during the week. I'm trying to go every other week. And it used to be that I go on Saturdays or Sundays after church, but it's a lot busier then. And since my husband's working from home as well, I do have the flexibility to go during the week. And so I just feel better. It's not as crowded. I'm not there when everybody else needs to go because they are working. So I often try to fit that in on either Friday morning or Thursday morning. So if I do end up going on Thursday morning, I've made a note to myself that like the Thursday subjects can be moved to Friday, and we can just kind of treat Thursday like Friday, where it's a looser day. And often grocery shopping days takes the whole morning for me to go grocery shopping and bring it all in. And then recently I've been doing things like getting a lot of berries to make jam. So that ends up being the afternoon chunk of time. So just letting you know that happens every 2 to 3 weeks as well. So I highly recommend for you to put together your own rhythm or routine when it comes to the homeschool week. I think it's really helpful being home to have those kind of touch points during the day and during the week. And if you have younger ones, there's some great resources out there for Waldorf rhythms where they even tie certain meals to certain days of the week. And I'm always drawn to that and always want to get into that more. So I might explore that more in the future. I did make little day of the week peg dolls at some point for my kids with the different colors for the days of the week. And so for my son, he's starting to get the days a bit more. He could say, we could say it's an orange day, and he kind of knew what that meant. White days were church days. Blue days were often family movie night. We haven't been doing that as often now that it's summer. We're outside. That's kind of a fun thing you could do with the rhythm. Remember that everybody's rhythm or routine or schedule, however you decide to do it, is going to look different. So it's great to look at us for inspiration, but make sure to think about how your life looks and feels and make it work for you. So make sure to hit that thumbs up button below. Subscribe if you haven't. Make sure you also click on that link below for Science Mama and see her homeschool routine video. I'm sure it's going to be different than mine, and I'm really excited to see what she does. She actually has some twins that I believe are toddlers now. So I'm excited to see what she's doing and how she's structuring her days. As always, I hope you are all well. I wish you the best, and I will talk to you later.